Thank you for your patience and for your excellent testimony. And let me begin by thanking you for bringing Claire to the hearing today, just to embarrass her. As a father of a Claire, my daughter is named Claire. I'm particularly partial to the name, so you can be me anytime you want, Claire. And I want to just say that the fact that I'm able to joke about one of your children, I think, reflects the very solid support and the lack of any need to, as they say, rehabilitate the witness. But I think that you've done an excellent job today, and I'm looking forward to your confirmation. I do have a few questions, and first, beginning with one of the topics that's been covered today, the interrogation procedures and waterboarding and so forth. I take it not only that you would oppose the use of such enhanced interrogation like waterboarding or other forms of interrogation that could be regarded as torture, but also that you would use the FBI's resources to investigate those kinds of violations of law if you found reason to think they were occurring.
Correct.
And there's no question that you would oppose those kinds of procedures within the administration and recommend to the president that prosecution be undertaken if an official of the administration or the military or anyone in the federal government engaged in such practices.
That's correct, Senator. I think that would be without lawful authority, so it would be a violation of law.
Let me turn to another subject that is close to my heart, and I think close to anyone who, like yourself, lives in Connecticut, gun violence. And the answer to this question may be self-evident, but I take it that you would support with great vigor and zeal the position of the administration in support of background checks, a ban on illegal trafficking, assault weapons, high-capacity magazines. In other words, the position and proposals of the administration to combat gun violence.
Yes, Senator. I think you'll find that I approach that just as Bob Mueller did.
Thank you. And using the resources of the FBI to investigate violations of our gun laws, as you did in Virginia, not only for their own sake, but also because so many of those gun violations are related to other kinds of crime, whether drug dealing or extortion. Can you talk a little bit about the importance that you would bring to violations of our gun violence prevention laws as the director of the FBI?
Yes, Senator. I think in general, the enforcement of those laws is essential to crime reduction, especially violent crime. I've always believed that a gun in the possession of a felon or a drug dealer or drug user is a homicide that hasn't happened yet. And so I think it's important that the government as a whole approach that very aggressively. I think the FBI's role in addressing those particular offenses is more in the context of complex violent crime cases, gang cases, things of that sort, and the essential work on the possession and trafficking is more of an ATF responsibility. But I have a passion for this across the board, and I will ensure that we continue to do what Director Mueller has done, is look at those seriously in the context of this complex gang case stuff.
I welcome that passion. I think it is tremendously important because, as you know, one of the arguments made against the improvement of these kinds of laws is that not enough prosecutions are undertaken under existing laws. And I strongly support stronger and more frequent prosecutions under existing laws, even as we move forward to improve those laws. And I take it that you would agree.
Yes.
Let me turn to an area that I think is very important. You've addressed it in part. I circulated a letter yesterday to my colleagues on the issue of NSA surveillance, and in particular the FISA court. And I take your point and agree with it that any assistant United States attorney or United States attorney or Department of Justice official who in effect failed to respect the a district court judge in seeking a warrant where there was no reasonable suspicion or probable cause to do so would soon lose credibility and would undermine not only his or her credibility, but also the office's, and so would be rigorous, as you've been, and I think all of us are who have been federal prosecutors, in that ex parte process. But in the context of the federal criminal procedure, there is ultimately a public proceeding when evidence is sought to be introduced in court. And there are challenges to admissibility, and law is made in an adversarial process. There is no such adversarial process in the FISA court. And so I propose that there be some special advocate, in effect a defender of constitutional principles, to make sure that the other side is heard. If there is another side, I support declassifying and disclosing some of the opinions and rulings where possible, and so I've joined in supporting the measure that Senator Schumer and Senator Durbin mentioned. But put aside the disclosure or declassification issue, isn't there a role for the adversarial process in some form when law is made in the FISA court, whether it's on the meaning of relevant or other kinds of key legal standards and criteria for the issuance of warrants or other kinds of means of surveillance, search, seizure, where constitutional protections of privacy and liberty are implicated?
My honest answer is I don't know, but I think it's a very good question. I haven't thought about it well enough to give you a good answer. I would hope that the Department of Justice would take seriously that kind of suggestion and think it through in a way that I can't sitting here.
Well, I welcome your receptiveness to thinking more seriously about some kind of adversarial process in the FISA court so that, in effect, law is the result of litigation rather than simply fiat. And I know that that characterization may strike some as unfair, but I would hope to work with you, and I hope you'll work with me and others, colleagues, on trying to reform the FISA court in that way. I also, by the way, think that you've raised a very important point that the American public does not fully understand the way the FISA court works, has no inkling, in fact, in many ways of the way it works. And one of the aspects of the FISA court, unknown to a lot of people, is that the Chief Justice, acting alone, appoints members of the court. And I think strictly from an appearance standpoint, that could be regarded as raising questions about the accountability as well as the transparency of that procedure. There's no other court, specialized court, that operates in that way, and I understand that the FISA court is different from the Court of Claims or other similar specialized courts where judges are appointed for a term of years with the advice and consent of the Senate. But I would invite your thinking about that issue as well. I recognize it may not be within your direct purview as the director of the FBI, but I think in light of your experience as a federal prosecutor and litigator, I would hope perhaps you would work with us on that issue as well. Okay. Finally, and maybe most important, I join you, I share with you a tremendous admiration and love for the FBI as an institution that has done great good for the country and has some of the most talented and dedicated public servants in America. And I wonder if you've given thought to how the FBI can continue to attract the very best talent, both women and men, to its ranks.
Some, Senator, enough to know that it's something I'm keen to learn about, and not just because I have 4 beautiful, talented daughters sitting behind me, But I know that diversity in all institutions, public and private, is essential to excellence, especially if you're going to enforce the myriad of laws the FBI has to enforce. You've got to look like America. And so I'm keen to know, and I know this is a passion of Bob Mueller's, how are they approaching that? As boring as it sounds for a chief executive, the two most important underlings, I think, are your head of HR and your head of technology. I'm eager to learn how they're approaching recruitment, promoting, training people of all stripes. So from this vantage point, that's the best I can say, but I'm sure you'll hear more from me about it.
I hope to hear more from you about it, and I hope that you will let us know whenever we can support or help you in that effort, because it's, in my view, with all humility, one of the most important tasks and challenges that you'll have as director of the FBI. Thank you very much, and again, my thanks to you and your family.